Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 137 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Well, the snow's melting and being alive after you spend some time carving when it's 30 degrees and your hands hurt and it's cold, and now it's like a balmy 42 degrees. This is gorgeous, man. And so, and there's a lesson there. I mean, push through the tough stuff, the stuff that isn't fun, because then you'll notice that, you know, maybe what you were doing really wasn't that bad after all. It's a lot better than what it could be. All right. I had a couple of questions, and so I'm not gonna show you stripping this whole thing off, because it's gonna be more of what I already showed you on the last video, and I don't want to waste time just showing you the same stuff. When you're, but I want to show you because I had some questions, and I wanted to back up just a little bit and clarify stuff. So I'm going to move the camera, and I'm going to show you some other tools, and I'm going to set up and try to show you how I would work this edge with tools that you may not, that you can use if you don't have what I've got. I mean, I don't want to say I get, you know, a little lost and say, oh, I just grab one of these and get one of those because I got all this stuff. I didn't always have all this stuff. It took me a long time to get all these different chisels. And I understand that if you're buying these chisels, you might only be able to afford one or two a week or one or two a month, because, you know, finding a spare 40 or 50 bucks to buy a tool and pay the shipping, if you got to get it shipped, you know, outside of your regular bills, I get it, man. You know, I'm not rich either. So I want to show you that, but I don't want to touch base. I check my videos out and watch this stuff pops up in the feed, and some video popped up, and these are the tools I use for sculpting stone. And my wife's like, don't look at that, because if you do, just shut up. I don't want to hear you complaining, because you're going to explode. Well, yeah, you know, I pretty much, you know, the fuse was lit and I was gone. Okay, one of the first things a person on the video was suggesting, you know, he says, you got to take care of yourself, get a good air filter, get an N95. What did I tell you about N95? That lets all the perfect little dust get straight into your lungs, okay? Get a P100. There is no difference in the cost of buying P100 filters over N95 filters. That's like saying I'm going to take a piece of string that, came on my Christmas package, and I'm going to use that instead of a seatbelt in my car, because boy, I can tie a good knot. It's just dumb. P100s, there's no reason for it. Then he's carving with no suction. Total bomb. It looks like a bomb went off in them. Like we literally came in here and blew the floor all up with a leaf blower. Get a suction. It doesn't cost that much. You know, for, you know, roughly $100, you could have like a Dust Deputy quality cyclone, not just a cheap little one you put on top of a 55-gallon trash can or a 5-gallon bucket or whatever that just, you know, angles in and angles up. Get an actual cyclone like these Dust Deputies that Oneida does. They're awesome, and they will cut down so much of your mess and make it better, so that space that you're working in doesn't become a health hazard, because you will track every bit of that dust that you get all over your body into the rest of your life, and your entire life will be a train wreck. And you don't think about it until, man, my windshield's messy. And now so you can see all these little hazy scratches all over the inside of the glass in your car, because all that dust came out of your clothes, got on your glass, you wipe it off, and you're scratching the dust, the glass with stone dust. Do it with your computer stuff, do it in your house, do it everywhere. So manage your dust, be careful. Don't be like that, okay? But anyways, let me show you what I'm gonna talk about for different chisels. And I'm going to try to move and get on this edge, and we're going to talk about it. I do want to say, if I can reach over with this, I want to unplug this so I don't accidentally do something stupid. Okay, when I was sawing this in, I'm going to saw this whole edge just like I did. I'm going to go in here at about a 45 and go all the way up. Okay, the most dangerous place to work the place where you're the most likely make a mistake. Okay, right here, if I saw in, the saw hits. Okay, see if I get where you can kind of see it. Okay, that's the depth of my saw. Okay, what's going to happen is this area right here below where I've relieved it is because I'll be going away, and I don't have earbuds. I don't even really know how they work. I'd be even deafer than I am already if I had actual headphone music playing. You got your buds in, you're listening to whatever, you're doing whatever you're doing, you're grooving away, you're sawing away, you go until it cuts, till it hits, till it hits, till it hits. You go down here, you go brrr, till it hits. This is already down 3/4 of an inch. You're gonna saw way into that stone right here. This is where you'll make a mistake. This area right here to where the saw doesn't bump into the stone. This is the most dangerous, most likely place that you will screw up. Zooming, you'll find, and you'll have this one big long cut. And it's a sick feeling. I mean, I don't know that I've ever done it, but I know people that have. I've been working beside people that have, and you hear that, oh no, or that quiet. And they were just hogging away and going at it, or they're banging away and bang, 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 and it goes ding, 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 and then it goes tonk, and you hear that crack, and they just blew it. This is the treacherous area right here, okay? Using this to keep you as a guide, this extra material with that saw that'll only go a certain distance deep. Now, if you've got a 5-inch blade, it's gonna go deeper than 3/4 of an inch on this saw. If you got a 4-inch blade, it's not going to go quite 3/4 of an inch deep. This 4.5-inch blade that I use on this saw goes 3/4 of an inch deep. And that's why I use the same blade all the time. But this is relatively safe. I mean, you still screw up, but this is safe. And down, once you get down past here, this is safe. But this little area right here, if you're going to saw too deep, that's probably where it's going to happen. Okay, like I said, you've been warned. All right, look at these tools, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to look at and what we can use, okay? And then I'll see if I can set the camera up. Okay, see if my light's wrapped. I said to work the edge, grab a 2-blade, which has 2 pieces of carbide in it, okay? Let's see where, I don't know where that'll focus. 2 pieces of carbide that aren't sharpened very well because they're getting worn down. I got to put them on the wheel. Or a bush chisel. This has got 3 blades. This one has got 5 blades. Looks like it's got about 5 blades in it. Okay. Remember that when you put energy into a cut, it's distributed along the entire edge of that tool and how it contacts the stone. So when you've got tools like this, that energy is distributed over, several inches. I mean, those are wider than an inch, and there's 5 blades. And so you've got probably 7 inches, maybe even 8 inches of energy, a blade that energy has to, is spread out by, versus having a wide scraper. That's just a plain wide single piece of carbide. If you're building your tools, you can put 2 pieces side by side in order to make one wider. And you probably won't ever notice that little joint in the middle as long as they're nice and butted up and it's braced together. You may have a straight chisel, which is pretty likely everybody's got at least one straight chisel in their kit. And you may have a curved chisel or a round chisel, and they may call it a rondelle or whatever. The difference between how this tool will cut and how this tool will cut, they're the same width, but this has a leading edge, and that leading edge will tend to dig while this entire edge will support itself and cut slower, okay? And then there's narrower ones as well. But let me see if I can set this up to show you how I would use each one of these tools in order to do this edge like I've been talking about. And I'm not going to turn the hand machine on and cut because I don't want to be run in my mouth and screw up, because this is work. This isn't some throwaway piece of junk. This is work. I'm going to show you my posture and how I'd hold the tool, and let's see if we can make this work. Okay, I hope this focus works. My recommendation for this was to take the tool and go with a 2-blade or a bush chisel, one of these. And I know everybody's not going to have these. And go straight on here to go up and down in order to erode this down to that red line, okay? So we're going in here like this, and we're going straight up and down, and I've got full contact, okay? This tool is made to be used at a 90-degree angle so that both blades are fully engaged at all times, just like a bush chisel. What'll happen if you end up rocking out and riding on one end is you'll break the ends off, and then you've got a 3-blade or a 4-blade instead of a 4 or 5-blade, okay? These are the safest option to use. This will go down the most slowly with the best control. A properly sharpened 2-blade will work really well too. And you may see me change my angle from a 45 to a 45 to straight up and down. And that's the same principle as when I talk about doing, when you're axing something and you're trying to close it up. By going straight like this, you'll tend to create a pattern, okay, in the same area, and the surface will undulate up and down. By going across, you'll cut the high points off that pattern. You know, the cross hatching or whatever will grab just the high points. It'll span, hopefully, any of those ins and outs. And then by reversing it and doing it opposite there, you'll do the same thing again, take the high points off. And then you go back, and that gives you a faster rate of work, because by going this way and then this way and then this way, you'll end up working faster. If you don't have a 2-blade, and this is what I was asked on this last video, you can use a scraper, okay? A scraper is the next best option, and you'll see me using this a lot, and I'll do the same thing. I'll go up and down. This isn't made to be used square, okay, because it's a single edge. We're going to ramp this, we're going to tip this, and the angle of attack, the angle of approach that you put this tool on has a lot to do with how hard your stone is. The harder the stone is, the more vertical your attack should be. But depending on what you want to do with the tool, you can lower the angle to put less stress on this edge and less energy into the stone, so you've got a better, you're more carefully reducing stone. And I'll do the same cross hatching with this. Okay, and I'll go in and out. The nice thing about a wide edge like this is it's easier to support it, so it's got some overhang. So you got a little bit of overhang here on the back side of this. When I'm like this, that corner could potentially dig and pop, and that's what'll happen when you're using just a regular straight chisel, or one that's even more narrow than this. This is perfectly adequate to do that work, and when I'm working and I'm comfortable in the groove or whatever you want to call it, I'm not necessarily going to reach over. If I'm right here and I see a place, I'll go over here and I'll very carefully go. And I'll probably spend more time. I may work some like this, but I probably will spend more time with it at an angle like this. And the angle that I like to use is that the leading edge of the way this tool is tipped. This tool is tipped like this. That leading edge is forward and this interior edge trails. The reason for that is that if I go like this, I'm putting the energy towards the edge of the stone, and I'm likely, if I, especially this corner, snags or hits a crystal or buries in, it'll just pop a piece out. Okay, that's really dangerous. That's why it's so nice to have a wide scraper, because you can go like this carefully as a matter of cross hatching, and you're always overhanging the edge. If you overhang the edge with a small chisel, well, it's the same thing with this one. This one, you're effectively only using the interior of that tool. See if I can hold that up. Okay, does that make sense? Because if I'm only carving like this, I'm doing the same thing. as I am with doing this, but this corner isn't right here, and that corner can really cause a lot of wreckage. Okay, but I'm still working towards the interior of the stone. I also need to slow down, and instead of scraping away like this, that I can when I've got that overhang, or a 2 or 3 blade, multi-blade tool where I can really go kind of fast. This has to go slow, and this is going to be more of a scrape, 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 as opposed to running the tool like this, because I want to avoid having this corner dig and catch in there. Okay. Okay, this will work. 1/2 this wide will work. You just got to be careful. There'll be times when you're working, especially a niche, that I may not use a straight tool that much, especially when it's curved at the top, because I want to be careful about how I engage, or I may have interference if I've got a figure and an element that's right here beside this edge. I may not have room to get in there. So then we use a round chisel. Now, a round chisel will do this edge fine, but you're concentrating all of your cutting energy at the leading portion of that curve. Wherever that curve is where that tool is going to dig. And so this works really well. This is more aggressive in terms of taking stone off, but you've got to be careful because it is more aggressive. It can dig and it can just bite and it'll take a mess. Now, what will happen is that I will continue to tip this edge. Okay, right now this edge is about 30 degrees from here. From here to here is about 30. I want to try to lay this over and make this closer to flat, all right? To do that, I'll continue to scrape this down. And then when I'm away from this edge, I will use this round chisel to come in and clip the tops off. And I'll pare this out, I'll cut this, cut, and I'll work it down, and I'll work up to this edge very, very carefully with a really sharp round chisel, because that directs the energy into the apex of that curve, and it directs it into the stone I want it to go into. You got to slow down. This exercise, whatever, this process, when you do bas relief on a stone and you're cutting out a niche, a lot of people that aren't trained do relief work like that, and they'll open up a niche, and they'll always have a very steep angle right there at the edge of that niche. That's a sign of somebody that doesn't do what I do. Okay, I won't badmouth them and call them a name, but if I did that, my sculptor would have kicked me right in the butt. My grandfather would have too. This is supposed to be a 90-degree transition on a niche. And so what we do is we tip this edge down like this. We take this and we'll pare it away, cut, and we'll work our way up to that very edge. And then at the very end, and this is when you are at your Superman point of the day, buddy, when you are the best you can possibly be, you will take, usually, let me see if I've got one on the table here, I should have. We'll take a curved scraper. And this one isn't ideal because this is a curved scraper, rondelle, wide round chisel. See how fat that is? And I can draw it back some more, but we're getting down towards the bottom of the carbide. I'd rather have one that's nice and long like this that I can have really skinny. But we'll take this and use that overhang so that we can pare down, and we'll cut ourselves. We'll be at like maybe a 5-degree, almost perfectly vertical, that edge, to cut that edge away, to get that line in order to clean that niche up. And then we'll axe everything up in the niche. What'll happen is if you don't clean that edge up perfectly, when the light's just right and it shines over it, you'll see this coarseness on the edge on that niche, and you'll see this almost like a border around it where there's all this crappy stonework, and then down here where it's easy to axe, it's all pretty. So you got to get back up to that top, and because a lot of niches have a significant amount of curve going over the figure, you've got got 50% or more of you know, easy to have, you know, at least 30, if not 50% of the length of that edge of that niche has to be finished with a curved chisel. And you want a long, sometimes you'll dress your chisel a little bit to better match it. But at the end, you pair up to that very edge, and then you can go in and axe it and have it just the way you want it. But if until you have different chisels, you know, and this is like I said, I'm not charging you money just to watch me or talk to me or email me or post me a message, a comment or whatever on there. Get the right tools, okay? If I could only buy a few chisels to start, I'd probably get several straight ones. I might buy one round one to start, and then I'd buy the rest of them as straight, because this chisel and this chisel will cost the same thing. And it's easy to knock these corners off and round this tool, and if you're new, you'll probably bust a corner off anyways. Get some straight chisels. I'd get a couple that are smaller than this and a couple scrapers that are bigger than this. And I'd get like 3 or 4 straight chisels like this, nice square ones, and then do what you want with them. And a 9-point. I've got those ones that have like a 9-point, and they're like crossed. There's like a star pattern. Never used them. I've literally had them for 20 years here in the studio. Over 20 years, I've never found a place where they actually worked for anything I could use them. Same thing with the round cup chisels, with the round carbide. Somebody gave me they gave me like 15 or 20 of them and said, here you go, we never used them. I never use them. He says, I don't know what they're for. I said, yeah, I'll try them. They're supposed to be for surfacing. I never found a value in them. The bush chisels, you may have to get a square shank and make them. You have to cut a slot in the middle and drill a hole through, and you can make some small ones. You know, if you get to that point. But cutting this edge, this is a critical skill. And if you can cut square and flat things well, it's going to make your work look professional, okay? Because all the people that aren't professional don't cut things square and flat. They've got all kinds of water, or they get out here and they try to grind it flat. No, cut it with a chisel, do it on purpose. And if this is soft stone, I'm not going to try to cut that edge with a chisel, because I'm going to get close to it, and then I'm going to finish it with an abrasive. You know, I've got any manner of, I got a whole pile of old grindstone pieces, and I got one of these masonry things for dressing grout, I think. And so I'll take this and I'll keep it dressed as the way it needs to be dressed, so I can have a nice square edge. But I would finish that edge on soft stone with an abrasive, just because that's the smart way to do it. Because if you put a chisel out here, you know, whether it's an abrasive, whether it's a rasp, and you're cutting it very evenly, you won't put the energy into that, weaken that edge, and cause it to fracture, okay? So, long story about using different chisels to cut this edge, okay? I'm gonna set up and I'm not gonna show cutting this whole edge because I've already done it here. And I'm just gonna do the same thing all the way up and down, all the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. This is the danger zone right here, because that's where the saw will clear. And I've got to be really careful so that I don't cut too deep right in this area, because this little, 1 inch or whatever, and this gap between the throat on the saw, okay, this gap right here, because the saw will bump here, but down here it won't, and down here it won't. And so if I cut in here and that saw can clear and it goes to the bottom, I'll go way over in here past this red line and the stone will be wrecked. And we can't have that, okay? Not at this point. I do have, I think in the description, I keep a listing for carbide, for quality carbide, and I buy my carbide and make my tools. Okay, we did a couple videos on tipping tools, at least one. And if you do that, once you have a number of shanks, you can have a lot of tools very affordably. The carbide is, let's just say the chisel costs less than $10 to rebuild once you have some old chisels. And you can have any kind of chisel, and I don't think you'll spend more than $10 a tool to rebuild it, which you have a acetylene torch and your brazen rod and some carbide. It makes it really affordable, and it'll help you have a wider variety of tools. So I want to start cutting stone. I got to move stuff around and get to work. It's nice weather. I want to cut. We're probably pretty close to, if I say just a little bit here, this video will be pushing 30 minutes, and it's time to wrap it up. So let me say a couple of things, okay? We did have a comment about gloves and people wearing different things and taping fingers up and everything. I got something. I'm going to do a video. I'll show y'all. It's in the comments on one of the other videos. These are the gloves that I've defaulted to in recent years. Put that on there so you can see it. These great white 3GX gloves. I don't really know who makes them. Dyneema. You see that? And they're great white 3GX gloves with shark and I don't know, I guess you can read that. It looks like it's backwards on the camera. But do a screenshot, find that out. They're the most durable gloves I've ever found. I can carve with these. I don't know if I've got a pair. I can carve with these I bet I could carve this whole stone, okay, and not wear out this glove, rubbing against that stone. They're unbelievable. As far as rugged, durable, they're a cut-resistant glove. You'll rub through the fingers sometimes. I came up wearing cotton gloves, brown jersey gloves, and we clip the ends of the fingers off. That's what Gary liked to do. And then you take duct tape, wrap the end of it, wrap the knuckles, and wrap around the hand. And as they progressively wore out, you'd wrap more duct tape and more duct tape and more duct tape until you just had this duct tape thing on your hand with a little bit of a few strings here and there. This hand never wore out. You just clip the tops of the fingers off just so you had the tips of your fingers if you need them. But it was very comfortable, and your right hand would never wear out. Now if I wear a glove on my right hand, I'll typically just get, I just get a leather glove and wear it, because I'm usually wearing it because it's cold. I don't want the wind on my hand. And none of these fabric gloves stop the wind. But these were some safety gloves that a friend that worked, they're cut-resistant gloves. He works in some industrial set, and he said, I can't wear gloves. My hands are too big, and his hands they made mine look like a joke. And these wouldn't fit him. He gave me a couple pairs and says, you might like them, Button. If you wear gloves, try them out. And I'm telling you, I still have cotton gloves I wear on occasion just because it's sort of like, you wear your favorite old sweatshirt or whatever, and you wear it till it falls apart. It feels good. But man, these gloves, even down here in South Carolina, when it's really hot in the summer, if I need them, like if I'm doing a lot of axing and I'm really going to be rubbing my knuckles, I'll wear a pair of these gloves. You don't get all sweaty, stinky, your hands don't get clammy like they do from some others. But boy, they just last forever. So if you need a pair of gloves to wear, to protect you against abrasions, because abrasions are a real issue. I remember I told you about blood, getting blood on the stone. You don't want blood on the stone. And if you chip a knuckle and it takes a long time to heal, you're going to want something on it. And these last a long time. These, Dyneema great white 3GX gloves. Get those exact gloves. And I'll throw one other thing out here. Before anybody, nobody's complained yet, but I'm sure if I ever get discovered and more than, y'all 6 people watch my videos over and over again, because we get to about 100 and stop, and then it just is very slow. And I know some of you guys y'all are watching them multiple times. So bas relief, bas relief, niche, high relief versus bas relief, and even, this, what got me thinking about this was telling you about the angle at which I hold the tool, whether you hold the tool vertical or whether you hold it very shallow. That's a function to a certain extent of the type of stone you're working on, but it also is determinant about the operation that you're doing at that certain time. Because there's sometimes when you want to be straight into that to put all that energy in, there's other times you want to be very shallow. And that will translate into other types of stone as well. You know, there isn't a hard fast that you always hold a hard stone tool at a 45 to at a 90-degree angle or between 45 and 90. You may be way down scraping. The biggest thing is you have to make sure that your bevel is dressed to the point that you don't get down to that bevel to where you're scrubbing and you're rubbing on the shoulder of this bevel instead of cutting with the edge. That's really the problem. And so if you can't draw your chisel back, I mentioned about what this one is kind of fat, and I didn't want to do that. The problem is I want to preserve this shank to retip it. And so it'd be better for me to use this to scrape with the axe than to do fine work. I'll just get another one that's long, and I'll use that skinny portion where it's long, you know, like this one. It's still nice and long, and I can taper that down and make it really thin and curved. And then when I get down to the bottom, you know, and that tool's thinner anyways, just because of the way it was made, then I can transition and have it for different work, for more vertical work, to where I can't go as lay it down as much because this is going to ramp out. All right, so that'll wrap this video up. Bas relief, bas relief, where the transition is from lower relief to higher relief, you know, get over it, man. You know, one of my favorite arguments is vichyssoise. As a chef, you do vichyssoise. If you know French, you understand that vichyssoise is spelled in the feminine, okay? So, or the O-I-S-E at the end. It's a feminine connotation. And people will argue that it should be pronounced vichyssoise. Okay, dude, it was invented by some guy in New York City that put a French name on it just so it'd sound fancy. He didn't know anything about French, and he just wrote vichyssoise. Okay, and that's what he pronounced it to be. He spelled it wrong for what he wanted to call it. That's what it is. It isn't French in the first place. You can call it whatever you want. We call them niches in Vermont just because we did. I know it's a niche if you're going to get into elegant terminology. If you want to correct me, buy a stone, and I'll call it whatever you want. Okay? My name's Clinton Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship, and I can't wait to cut this stone. I'm just going to put the camera up, and when we come back, it'll all be cut off. Thanks for coming in.